Captain Elena Reyes straightened her dress uniform and fought the urge to check her neural implant's tactical display. Old habits died hard, especially for someone who'd spent 15 years piloting combat dropships before being thrust into diplomacy. The massive chamber of the Galactic Assembly stretched before her, its crystalline architecture designed to accommodate beings from 17 different species and nearly 100 worlds. "They're going to vote for quarantine," her assistant, Dr. James Wong, whispered. The slender xenoanthropologist clutched his datapad like a shield. "The Mpreth delegation has been lobbying hard against us all week." Elena allowed herself a small smile. "Let them try." The assembly chamber hummed with a cacophony of translator matrices as Supreme Speaker Zerlith, a towering arthropodian whose iridescent carapace reflected the chamber's ambient lighting, called for order. The massive screens floating above the chamber displayed the motion in 17 different languages, Resolution 47B, classification of Sol system as restricted Deathworld territory and mandatory quarantine of human species. Distinguished representatives, Zerlitha's translator rendered their clicks and whistles into standard Galactic. "We gather today to address the growing concern regarding the human species. Their classification as Deathworlders is not in dispute, their homeworld's gravity alone qualifies them. However, their rapid expansion, technological development, and unpredictable nature necessitate additional measures." Elena watched as Ambassador Kreeth of the Mpreth Confederation rose from their hoverpod. The jellyfish-like being's tentacles rippled with bioluminescent patterns of aggression and fear. "The humans have developed faster-than-light travel independently of galactic standard methods," Kreeth's lights pulsed. "They survive in environments that would kill most species. Their entertainment causes psychological disruption in our youth. They consume stimulants that would be classified as combat drugs in any civilized system. They must be contained." Elena stood, her movement deliberately smooth and controlled. The chamber's gravity was set to galactic standard, about 0.7 of Earth normal. She'd trained herself to appear graceful in it rather than bouncing around like an eager puppy, as many humans did on their first visit off-world. "Honorable representatives," she began, her voice clear and steady, "I find it fascinating that this assembly speaks of quarantine while wearing clothes made of Earth cotton, drinking beverages containing mild derivatives of Earth chocolate and using computer systems that run on quantum algorithms first theorized by human mathematicians." She gestured to the massive screens above. "Those display panels. They use synthetic crystals grown using a process developed in lunar laboratories. The translator matrices we're all using. They incorporate neural network architectures pioneered by human AI researchers." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Elena continued, her smile growing slightly sharper. "You call us unpredictable, yet we've honored every treaty we've signed. You fear our strength, yet we've used it only in defense. You worry about our influence, yet your own citizens freely choose to embrace human culture and innovations." The Mpreth ambassador's tentacles writhed in agitation. "Precisely our point. Your species spreads like a viral infection, changing everything it touches." "We call that progress, Ambassador," Elena replied calmly. "And if you check your historical records, you'll find that societies that attempt to halt progress tend to fail spectacularly. But please, by all means, vote for your quarantine. Just understand what that means." She touched her neural implant, and the chamber's screens shifted to display trade statistics. 90% of the assembly's quantum computing infrastructure relies on human-designed processors. 60% of your entertainment networks run on human-developed compression algorithms. 40% of your medical facilities use human-pioneered regeneration techniques. Elena let the numbers sink in. A quarantine wouldn't contain humanity, representatives. It would only contain you. While you struggle with outdated technology and stagnant cultural development, we would continue to innovate, explore, and grow. And when you eventually realize your mistake, as you inevitably will, you'll find that the gap between us has grown even wider." The chamber erupted in overlapping translations as dozens of representatives began speaking at once. Supreme Speaker Zerlitha's carapace clicked rapidly, their species equivalent of a stress response. "You dare threaten this assembly," the speaker demanded. "Threaten?" Elena laughed, and the sound carried an edge that reminded everyone present that humans evolved as pursuit predators. "I'm offering a choice. Work with us as equals, benefit from our strengths as we benefit from yours, or waste resources trying to contain something that has never been successfully contained, human progress." She sat down, noting with satisfaction how many representatives were hurriedly consulting their datapads, likely recalculating the economic impact of a human quarantine. "They're going to table the vote," Dr. Wong whispered, scanning through diplomatic channels on his pad. "3 delegations have already requested a recess to review the economic implications." Elena nodded, finally allowing herself to check her tactical display. Force of habit, old combat pilots never fully let their guard down. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to make the other side realize there wasn't any point in fighting in the first place. As the chamber dissolved into heated debate, Elena reflected that humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to make itself indispensable. The galaxy might fear the Deathworlders, but they needed them too much to shut them out. And that, she thought with satisfaction, was a far better victory than any quarantine could have achieved. 2 weeks after the failed quarantine vote, Elena found herself in the Galactic Assembly's Cultural Exchange Center, watching with barely concealed amusement as a group of Mpreth youth performed what appeared to be a human hip-hop dance routine. Their bioluminescent tentacles created spectacular light shows as they moved to the rhythm, adding an entirely new dimension to the art form. "They're actually quite good," Dr. Wong commented, recording the performance on his datapad. "Though I'm not sure how the original artists would feel about their work being interpreted by floating jellyfish." "Art adapts," Elena replied. "Just like everything else in the universe." She gestured to the viewing gallery, where representatives from a dozen different species watched with varying degrees of fascination and horror. "That's what they don't understand yet. They think they can cherry-pick which parts of human culture to accept." The Cultural Exchange Center had become ground zero for what many assembly members were calling a human cultural invasion. Despite the best efforts of conservative factions to limit human influence, Earth's art, music, fashion, and entertainment had spread through the galaxy like wildfire. A sharp chime from her neural implant alerted Elena to an incoming priority message. Her expression hardened as she read it. "James, we need to go. Now." "What's wrong?" "The Vrax Collective just banned all human media imports. They're claiming our entertainment causes dangerous psychological alterations in their population." The Vrax, silicon-based crystalline beings known for their rigid social structures and absolute control over information flow, had been among the strongest supporters of the quarantine proposal. Their failure to contain humanity through official channels had apparently driven them to more desperate measures. 20 minutes later, Elena stood before the Assembly's Emergency Session Committee, facing the Vrax representative, a towering formation of purple-hued crystals arranged in what their species considered an authoritative configuration. "The evidence is irrefutable," the Vrax representative's harmonics resonated through the chamber. "Exposure to human entertainment has caused a 47% increase in individual thinking among our youth. They question established hierarchies. They suggest alternative social arrangements." The crystal being's tone conveyed deep disgust. "Some have even begun creating unauthorized artistic expressions." Elena fought to keep her expression neutral, though inside she was laughing. "Representative, with all due respect, you're describing cultural exchange, not contamination. Your youth are engaging with new ideas, that's what young minds do across every species. They are defying their designated thought patterns." The Vrax's crystals vibrated with agitation. "Yesterday, a group of junior nodes suggested that our crystalline matrices could be arranged in non-traditional formations. They called it abstract art." From the gallery, several younger assembly members failed to suppress their amusement. Even some of the traditionally conservative Mpreth delegates' tentacles flickered with colors that suggested suppressed mirth. And this morning, the Vrax continued, either oblivious to or choosing to ignore the reaction. We discovered an unauthorized gathering where members of our species were engaging in what they called interpretive dance. They were deliberately refracting light at non-standard frequencies. Elena stepped forward, her voice firm but diplomatic. Distinguished representatives, the Vrax Collective's ban on human media isn't just unenforceable, it fundamentally misunderstands both the nature of cultural exchange and the rights of sentient beings to engage with new ideas. She activated the chamber's holographic display, showing statistics from across galactic space. In the past month alone, over 2,000 new art forms have emerged from the blending of human and alien cultural elements. Trade in cultural goods has increased by 300%. Tourism between human and alien worlds has doubled. The display shifted to show economic data. Furthermore, sectors that embrace cultural exchange are showing unprecedented growth in innovation and productivity. It turns out that when you allow people to think differently, they come up with new solutions to old problems. The Vrax representatives' crystals took on a deeper purple hue, a sign of extreme distress. You do not understand. Our society is built on perfect order, perfect harmony. These human ideas are chaos. No, Elena countered, they're freedom. The freedom to think, to create, to imagine something different than what came before. You can try to ban it, but you might as well try to ban gravity or entropy. Ideas, once released, cannot be contained. She turned to address the entire committee. The Vrax Collective's ban isn't just doomed to fail, it's already failed. While we've been having this discussion, the trending entertainment across their local networks is something called Crystal Core Poetry Slam. It's apparently a blend of traditional Vrax harmonics and human spoken word poetry. It has 10 million viewers, and counting. The Vrax representative's entire form shuddered, sending rainbow refractions across the chamber. This is precisely what we're trying to prevent. Our youth are being corrupted by human chaos. They're being inspired by human creativity, Elena corrected. And frankly, Representative, I don't think you're actually angry about abstract art or interpretive dance. You're angry because your people are discovering that there are alternatives to rigid conformity. That's not corruption, that's growth. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed scenes from across the galaxy, breath light dancers performing with human break dancers, crystalline beings creating hybrid sculpture songs, even traditionally isolationist species hosting mixed culture festivals. This is the real face of humanity's influence, Elena said softly. Not conquest, not corruption, but collaboration. Creation. The emergence of something new and beautiful from the meeting of different worlds. The chamber had fallen silent, even the usually chatty translator matrices seeming to pause in contemplation. Finally, a young Vrax delegate, their crystals arranged in what could only be described as a rebelliously asymmetrical pattern, stood up. I would like to submit evidence, they chimed, their harmonics carrying an unmistakable note of defiance. Our unauthorized artistic collective has composed a multidimensional piece combining traditional Vrax crystal harmonics with human jazz improvisation. We call it Freedom in Fractal. As the young delegate's creation filled the chamber with an otherworldly blend of crystalline resonance and swinging rhythm, Elena caught Dr. Wong's eye and smiled. They didn't need words to express what they both knew, the real revolution wasn't happening in assembly chambers or diplomatic meetings. It was happening in art galleries and concert halls, in virtual reality spaces and social media networks, in every place where different species came together to share, create, and imagine something new. The galaxy was changing, one song, one dance, one idea at a time. And all the bands in the universe couldn't stop it. The warning came at 0300 Earth Standard Time. Elena was reviewing reports in her office at the Galactic Assembly when every human-designed system in the building simultaneously shut down. In the sudden darkness, her neural implant flashed urgent warnings across her field of vision. James, she called out, knowing her assistant would still be working late. Tell me we have backup systems running. We do, Dr. Wong's voice came from the doorway, his silhouette illuminated by the emergency lighting. But you're not going to like this. The Technarch Consortium just launched a galaxy-wide cyber attack targeting all human-design technology. Elena's implant finally connected to the backup network, flooding her vision with damage reports. The Technarchs, a species that had evolved from machine intelligence into living quantum computers, had long viewed human technological innovation as dangerously chaotic and unpredictable. How bad is it? They're trying to forcibly rewrite our quantum processors to follow galactic standard protocols. James pulled up a holographic display showing spreading zones of system failures. They claim they're correcting dangerous anomalies in human computing architecture. Elena's laugh was sharp and without humor. They still don't understand how human tech works, do they? Our quantum systems aren't just programmed differently, they're built to adapt. She stood, straightening her uniform. Get me a direct line to the Assembly Emergency Council. And contact Earth, tell them to initiate Protocol Phoenix. The Emergency Council chamber was chaos when Elena arrived. Representatives from dozens of worlds were shouting over each other as their technological infrastructure crumbled. The Technarch representative, a shimmering cloud of quantum particles arranged in a vaguely humanoid shape, hovered smugly above their podium. Order has been restored, the Technarch announced, their artificial voice carrying artificial calm. The dangerous irregularities in human computing systems are being corrected. Your networks will now function according to proper galactic protocols. Is that what you call this? Elena's voice cut through the chaos. She strode to the center of the chamber, projecting a new hologram. Take a look at what your corrections are actually doing. The display showed spreading patterns of system failures, but with an unexpected twist. Where the Technarch virus attempted to rewrite human quantum systems, those systems weren't failing, they were evolving. You made one critical mistake, Elena continued, allowing herself a predatory smile. You assumed our technology works like yours, rigid, hierarchical, following predetermined patterns. But human quantum computing is based on neural architecture. The more you try to force it to conform, the more it adapts. The Technarch's particle cloud wavered slightly. Impossible. All quantum systems must follow established protocols. Must they? Elena expanded the holographic display. Watch what's happening to your virus. The assembly fell silent as they watched the data streams. The Technarch's attack protocol was being absorbed, analyzed, and repurposed in real time. Human quantum systems weren't just resisting the forced standardization, they were learning from it. You see, Elena explained, when humans first developed quantum computing, we didn't try to force quantum particles to behave according to classical rules. We built systems that could think the way quantum particles do, in superposition, embracing uncertainty and possibility. Our computers don't just process information, they evolve. The Technarch's form fluctuated violently. This is chaos. Your systems are infecting our networks with unpredictable variations. We call that innovation, Elena countered. And right now, those unpredictable variations are the only thing keeping half the galaxy's infrastructure running. Your attack didn't cripple our technology, it forced it to adapt faster than ever. She gestured to new data streams showing across the chamber's displays. Look at what's happening. Human quantum systems are creating new protocols that bridge the gap between our architecture and yours. They're not destroying galactic standard systems, they're building translations layers, finding ways to make different approaches work together. The chamber erupted in a new wave of chaos as representatives began receiving reports from their worlds. The Mpreth delegates' tentacles flashed patterns of astonishment. Our networks, they're running at 300% efficiency. How is this possible? Because that's what humans do, Elena said simply. We don't just solve problems, we find opportunities in them. Your attack forced our systems to evolve rapidly, creating new solutions we might have taken years to discover otherwise. She turned to the Technarch, whose particle cloud had condensed into a tight, agitated formation. You can continue this attack, but I should warn you, every attempt to force our technology to conform will only make it more adaptable, more innovative. You're not containing chaos, you're catalyzing evolution. The assembly cannot allow this, the Technarch insisted, but their voice carried a new note of uncertainty. There must be standards, protocols, order. There can be, Elena agreed. But they must be flexible enough to accommodate different approaches. Look at your own data. The most stable networks right now are the ones where human and galactic technologies have learned to work together, combining the best of both architectures. She projected one final display, a real-time map of the galaxy showing networks shifting and adapting, creating new patterns of connection and cooperation. This is the future, not rigid standardization, but dynamic integration. Not forced conformity, but collaborative innovation. The assembly chamber hummed with urgent discussions as representatives watched their technological infrastructure not just recovering, but transforming. The Technarch's attack had inadvertently demonstrated exactly what made human innovation so powerful, its ability to adapt, evolve, and turn challenges into opportunities. I move to immediately cease all attempts to standardize human quantum systems, the MPREF delegate announced, their tentacles glowing with determination. And I further move to establish a joint technology council to study the integration of human and galactic computing architectures. As the motion quickly gained support, Elena caught Dr. Wong's eye. Humanity's greatest weapon was never our strength, she murmured. It was our ability to adapt. And our willingness to share that adaptation with others, James added, watching as even the Technarch's particle cloud began to shift into a less rigid configuration. The innovation war had lasted less than a day, but its impact would reshape galactic technology forever. In trying to force human innovation to conform, their opponents had instead sparked a technological renaissance that would bridge the gap between different species' approaches to computing, communication, and cooperation. It was, Elena reflected, a very human victory, turning an attack into an opportunity, chaos into creativity, and conflict into collaboration. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity's dangerous unpredictability was exactly what made them invaluable allies in an ever-evolving universe. The emergency alert pierced through the relative calm that had settled over the Galactic Assembly following the Innovation War. Elena was in the middle of a cultural exchange committee meeting when every screen in the chamber switched to display a single, terrifying image, a massive gravitational anomaly consuming the Zeta Reticuli sector. By the eternal void, the MPREF delegate whispered, their tentacles pale with fear. The theoretical models suggest it's some kind of space-time cascade failure. The gravitational forces are increasing exponentially. Elena's neural implant was already processing the data streams. How many inhabited systems are in the affected zone? 17, Dr. Wong reported grimly. Including the Vrax homeworld and 3 major Technarch processing nodes. Evacuation is impossible, standard ships can't operate in those gravitational conditions. The assembly erupted into panic. The Vrax representatives' crystals vibrated so intensely they were nearly shattering. The Technarch's quantum cloud had compressed into a dense knot of agitated particles. Supreme Speaker Zerlitha's voice cut through the chaos. Our scientists report we have less than 30 standard days before the anomaly begins affecting neighboring sectors. No known technology can operate in those conditions. We cannot help those worlds. Elena stood, her mind racing. Yes, we can. All eyes turned to her. You're right that no known galactic technology can handle those gravitational forces. But humans? We evolved on a death world with gravity that would crush most of your species. We've been building ships to operate in extreme conditions since before we reached the stars. She activated her neural implant, projecting specifications for a human heavy rescue vessel. This is the UNSS Prometheus-class rescue ship. Originally designed for gas giant operations, it's rated for up to 15 Gs. We have a fleet of them. Impossible, the Technarch representative pulsed. No biological species could survive such forces. Elena's smile was fierce. We don't just survive them, we train for them. Every human rescue pilot is genetically enhanced and cybernetically augmented to operate in extreme conditions. It's what we do. The chamber fell silent as Elena continued. While you were trying to quarantine us for being Deathworlders, we were developing technologies and adaptations that might be the only thing that can save those 17 systems. The question is, will you let us help? The debate was short. When faced with the choice between accepting human assistance and watching billions die, even the most conservative assembly members found their prejudices suddenly flexible. 48 hours later, Elena stood in the command center of the UNSS Hyperion, one of 30 heavy rescue vessels deployed to the crisis zone. The ship's reinforced hull groaned under gravitational stresses that would have torn standard vessels apart. Approaching the wrack's homeworld, Captain Maya Rodriguez reported, her cybernetic enhancements glowing as they helped her body cope with the crushing G-forces. Gravitational field at 9.7 Gs and rising. All systems nominal. Elena watched through the command center's screens as the rescue fleet moved into position. Each ship was a triumph of human engineering, designed by people who had evolved on a world that tried to kill them, built by a species that turned survival into an art form. First evacuation shuttles launching, Maya announced. Vrax crystalline structures holding stable in our reinforced containers. Who knew those mineral collection pods we designed for gas giant mining would work so well for evacuating silicon-based lifeforms? The operation was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human ships, powered by generators that drew strength from the very gravitational forces trying to tear them apart, darted through conditions that would destroy any other vessel. Human pilots, their bodies and minds enhanced to withstand forces that would liquefy most species, worked tirelessly to save those who had once feared them. Technarch quantum matrices secured, came another report. Their processing nodes are being transferred to our containment systems. Turns out our quantum-shielded data cores can house their consciousness structures. Hour after hour, the rescue continued. Elena coordinated with assembly emergency response teams, directing resources and managing the flow of refugees. The humans worked with an efficiency that amazed their alien observers, calm under pressure, innovative in crisis, turning the very harshness of their evolution into a tool for salvation. Do you know what I find fascinating? Dr. Wong commented during a brief quiet moment. The same adaptations they feared, our enhanced bodies, our reinforced technology, our ability to operate in extreme conditions, are now the only thing standing between them and extinction. Elena nodded, watching as another shuttle full of evacuees docked with a refugee processing station. Humanity's greatest strength isn't that we evolved on a death world. It's that we never stopped evolving, never stopped adapting. Every challenge, every threat, every limitation became an opportunity to become something more. The rescue operation continued for 3 weeks. By the time the gravitational anomaly reached its peak, the human fleet had evacuated every inhabitable world in its path. Not a single sapient life was lost, though the same could not be said for the worlds they left behind. In the assembly chamber, watching the last rescue ships dock with refugee processing stations, the Vrax representatives' crystals shimmered with an emotion that their species rarely expressed: humility. "We called you Deathworlders," they chimed softly. "We meant it as an accusation, a reason to fear and contain you. We did not understand that surviving a deathworld meant you would never abandon others to death." Elena stood before the assembly, her uniform still bearing the marks of her time on the rescue ships. "That's the thing about evolution on a deathworld," she said. "You either learn to work together, to protect each other, to turn every hostile force into an advantage, or you don't survive at all. Humanity didn't just survive. We learned to thrive in conditions that should have killed us. And now we can use that strength to ensure others survive too." The assembly voted unanimously to create a permanent human-led emergency response force. The same qualities they had feared, humanity's physical adaptations, their enhanced technologies, their ability to operate in extreme conditions, were now recognized as vital assets for the galaxy's safety. It was, Elena reflected, a victory won not through force or fear, but through humanity's most fundamental quality, the drive to reach out and help others, even in conditions that should make it impossible. They had proven that being Deathworlders didn't make them dangerous, it made them uniquely qualified to be the galaxy's protectors. 1 year after the gravitational crisis, the Galactic Assembly gathered for what many were calling the most significant session in its history. The Grand Chamber, once designed to keep species carefully separated, had been redesigned with human engineering to accommodate all forms of life comfortably, from the crystalline Vrax to the quantum cloud technarchs. Elena stood at the podium, surveying the changed chamber. The old rigid hierarchies had given way to something new, something that would have been unthinkable just a year ago. Species that once feared to interact now collaborated openly. The Mpreth light dancers performed alongside human artists in the cultural wing. Technarch quantum processors worked in harmony with human neural networks. Even the Vrax had begun incorporating organic architecture into their traditionally rigid crystal structures. Distinguished representatives, Elena began, 1 year ago, this assembly voted to quarantine humanity as a dangerous Deathworld species. Today, we gather to ratify the Universal Cooperation Accord, a document that recognizes the strength in our differences and the power of our unity. She gestured to the displays showing scenes from across the galaxy. Human emergency response teams trained alien species in survival techniques. Hybrid art forms flourished in shared cultural spaces. Revolutionary technologies emerged from the collaboration between different approaches to science and engineering. We've learned something vital this past year, Elena continued. The very qualities that made you fear us, our adaptability, our resilience, our drive to push boundaries, were exactly what the galaxy needed. But more importantly, we've learned that these qualities aren't unique to humans. Every species has its own strengths, its own innovations, its own ways of surviving and thriving. The Technarch representatives' quantum cloud shifted into a pattern that somehow managed to convey both agreement and embarrassment. We sought to impose order through uniformity. You taught us that true stability comes from diversity, from the integration of different approaches and perspectives. Our youth now train in human gravity chambers, the Vrax added, their crystals refracting light in complex new patterns. Not to become human, but to understand how different conditions spawn different strengths. We are learning that adaptation does not mean loss of identity, it means growth. Dr. Wong stepped forward, presenting the final draft of the accord on the main display. This document, he explained, represents a fundamental shift in how we view galactic civilization. Instead of fearing our differences or trying to standardize them away, we're creating frameworks for collaboration, innovation, and mutual support. The Accord outlined new principles for galactic cooperation, cultural exchange programs would be expanded. Emergency response teams would incorporate members from all species, each contributing their unique abilities. Technology development would embrace diverse approaches rather than enforcing rigid standards. Perhaps most importantly, Elena added, we're establishing the Galactic Innovation Institute, a place where different species can come together to solve problems by combining their unique perspectives and capabilities. The Mpreth delegates' tentacles glowed with approval. Already, human survival techniques combined with our bioluminescent capabilities have led to breakthrough developments in deep space rescue operations. Working together, we're stronger than we ever were apart. Elena nodded. That's the core principle of the new order we're building. Not dominance, not conformity, but collaboration. Each species brings its own strengths, its own innovations, its own way of seeing the universe. Together, we're not just surviving, we're evolving. She touched her neural implant, bringing up a final set of images, scenes from across the galaxy showing how different species had begun working together in ways that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Look at what we've achieved already. Vrack's crystal technology merged with human neural networks has created computing systems more powerful than either species could have developed alone. Breath light dance combined with human music has spawned new art forms that communicate across species barriers. Technarch quantum processing enhanced by human adaptability has opened new frontiers in space exploration. The chamber hummed with energy as representatives from every species recognized their own contributions in the tapestry of achievement being displayed. This is the real legacy of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage, Elena concluded. Not that we forced our way in, not that we proved ourselves stronger or more advanced, but that we helped create a space where every species could bring its unique strengths to the table. We didn't shatter the galactic order, we helped it evolve into something better. The vote to ratify the accord was unanimous. As celebrations broke out across the chamber, each species expressing joy in their own unique way, Elena found herself standing with Dr. Wong at the same spot where, a year ago, they had faced demands for human quarantine. You know what the best part is? James asked, watching as a group of young Vrack's crystals attempted to teach a human dance troupe how to refract light. None of this was our master plan. We didn't set out to revolutionize galactic society. Elena smiled, remembering all the challenges and transformations of the past year. We just did what humans have always done, adapted, innovated, reached out to others, and turned challenges into opportunities. The galaxy didn't change because we conquered it or forced it to change. It changed because we showed them a different way was possible, James finished. By being persistently, uncompromisingly, and sometimes unervingly human. As the celebration continued around them, Elena watched the next generation of galactic citizens, human and alien alike, already beginning to create something new together. The old order, built on fear and rigid conformity, had given way to something more dynamic, more inclusive, more alive. They had proven that being a Deathworlder didn't mean bringing death to the galaxy, it meant having the strength and adaptability to help life flourish in all its diverse forms. The future would hold new challenges, new crises, new needs for adaptation and innovation. But now, the galaxy would face them together, each species contributing its unique strengths to their shared survival and growth. It wasn't just a new order, it was an ever-evolving one, constantly adapting and improving, just as humanity had always done. And that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all.